Hello, I'm Stan Copeland, the pastor of Lovers Lane United Methodist Church in Dallas, Texas.
And I am Dee Dee Jones. I'm an associate pastor here at Lovers Lane. I am so excited. Today we have Miss Jan Langbein. And 30 years, we've been talking in the room. 33 years at Genesis.
Yes.
Wow.
I know, right?
I mean, that's pretty amazing. I'm thinking what was I doing 33 years ago?
Were you born?
Yes, I was, but I'm thinking about it. But I've known about Genesis all my life because I grew up in Dallas.
Okay,
and so
good.
I'm excited because this is a topic that I think is a really important topic. I think it's a topic we don't talk about much. Yeah. But I would love for you to share a little bit because we are about hope. But I also would like us to talk through what it means in the midst of that hope. Sometimes getting to the hope is not always pretty.
Absolutely. Well, I have to confess, as much as I love Lovers Lane United Methodist Church, I'm a member at Highland Park. And Easter Sunday morning, Paul Rasmussen did a sermon on the word hope. Yeah. And at first he just asked the congregation, what is the most important word that you can think of? And I'm thinking love, empathy, faith, whatever, forgiveness. And he said the word is hope. But hope is a word, when I thought about that word a lot, it was about, there's a whole lot of, we use it so casually. Gee, I hope you have a great weekend, and I hope that dinner turned out like you wanted it to, and hope you feel better tomorrow, kind of thing. And the word is used over and over and over again. But I started thinking about what it means for the clients of Genesis Women's Shelter, and it has a much deeper meaning because 100% of women who come to Genesis have been told, nobody will hear you, nobody will believe you, nobody will help you, there is no hope for you. And I am so blessed to see day in and day out people who find hope because they had the courage to pick up the phone and call, or they find hope because someone heard a podcast and said, here's a number that can help you, and a place where they do find help and hope.
Yeah.
So I think about laying that over the women and kiddos at Genesis, and there's so many roadblocks that they face. Some are so insurmountable, but many of them are just small roadblocks that just chip away at their hope. So what would I do about childcare? What would I do? I have no money. I have no job. I wasn't allowed to work. And at Genesis, what we do is we repair those fractures by saying, you can have hope because we've got free childcare. You can have hope because I have a counselor, master's level. You don't have to pay for this. That's another one that gives them hope that, well, maybe I could talk to a counselor even though I don't have any money to pay for that. And just even the way when somebody calls our hope line, our helpline, and they hear in someone's voice that I will hear you, I will believe you, and I will help you. So, we work in our community and every day, and I'm so touched by the fact that we are able to give hope to our clients because people like you all give hope to us.
Right.
So I don't remember the question, but thank you.
You did great. I want to take us back. You've been there 33 years.
Yes, sir.
And I've been here, I've started 27 here at Lovers Lane. But I can remember early on in my day, I received one of those calls of somebody who was desperate in need and called Genesis. Yeah. And, it was just such a relief to know that this person, as desperate as they were and really in danger, that we could have such a lifeline from y'all to this woman. And can you talk to us a little bit about the development that you've seen in these 33 years? Because Genesis back then wasn't what Genesis is today.
Absolutely. So when I got there, and I started as a volunteer, I'm not from abuse, and I really didn't think about it until I started volunteering there. It was actually my junior league placement. And I went down there and I thought, gosh, these women are going to look differently than I do, or their children won't look like mine. And what I found was women who need this kind of help are tall and short and fat and thin. They are black, they are white, they're Hispanic. And the only common thread that I can find among all people who reach out to Genesis is that they were in a relationship with an abusive partner. So what we had had, when I got there, was a 7-bedroom shelter and a hotline answer 24 hours a day, barely, and in one language. And so, you know, when I started working there, I didn't have a strategic plan. I'd never hired or fired or worked at a nonprofit. I'd never done a budget. And I think back then the budget was $400,000. Wow. Today, even, and I know inflation, it's $13 million. Yeah. But to me, that's 13 million promises that we are keeping to give hope to someone who needs the hope. So we started out with me just putting my foot in front of the other, thinking, well, gosh, how can she go get a job if she doesn't have childcare? So we put childcare on site. Well, what about her school-age kiddos? They're in danger of being snatched out of school by dad with a dentist appointment or some lie. And so we put school on site. And, you know, we recognize that lack of access to civil legal representation can mean defeat. So we put a legal clinic on site. No cost, no strings attached for any of our services. But someone can go and speak with a lawyer and say, he says he'll drain me dry. Or he says if I walk out with the kiddos, then I have abandoned them and he can take my kids away. So it's all of these things, again, those little fractures, the way he has chipped away at her hope, and we're able to replenish that. We recognized early on that the majority of women who are in abusive relationships do not seek shelter, and so we opened our first non-residential component. Oh gosh, maybe, I don't know, 25 years ago. And it's for moms who either haven't left or they've left and they have other residential resources. And so what we have learned since then, even since we've added transitional housing, even as we've added these other programs, what we've learned is that there's such a shortage of safe emergency beds in our city, between us and the Family Place and Mosaic and Salvation Army, that the best thing people who are listening and need help can do is connect with us at our non-residential center, almost like a runway toward getting out. Yeah. Come there and learn financial financial literacy. Come there and talk to an attorney. Come there and talk to a counselor. Have your children meet with their counselors and just take their temperature. So again, we just looked at my way I do things is I look at what's that roadblock and what can we do to fill in that gap or remove that roadblock completely.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, y'all are truly, Genesis is internationally known. I mean, for the work that y'all do, it's not just local. I mean, y'all's impact has really gone throughout the country and beyond. Yeah. And that's just so commendable.
Well, I'm proud of the work that we do, and I'm really proud of the team that I have at Genesis. I was talking to somebody who said, as an employer, who do you look for? What are the qualifications? And I always say, and you guys will agree with me, you have to have a fire in your belly to end violence against women and children. Yes, you have to have zero tolerance for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you look back over the years at some real key kind of springboards that just took you into a different realm of what Genesis is all about?
Well, I think as we have built, as we have added on, I hadn't been there very long before we recognized the need of longer-term housing. There just wasn't anything available in Dallas. That's late 80s, early 90s, right? And so I did my very first capital campaign to build an 18-apartment transitional housing complex. I remember thinking, first of all, how would I possibly raise that kind of money? It was only, it was a lot of money then, but $2.5 million. So we owned the land already. And so $2.5 million. And I thought, well, how can I possibly do that? You'll love this story. So I make a deadline for myself. By December 31st of that year, I was going to raise $2.5 million. And I get right up to December 25th, and I am short $15,000. And I thought, I go to my self-deprecation mode. I'm stupid. They're going to fire me anyway. What am I doing here? I can't raise money. And so about January the 15th, I get a call from a gentleman saying that Mr. Brown from this corporation is going to send you a check for the new building. And I said, well, I didn't know I was getting one. He said, yeah, we were just behind schedule and whatever. And I said, well, how much is it? And he said, $15,000. And guess what the date on it was? December 31st.
Isn't that something?
Well, I know God is laughing at me.
Yeah.
And I just constantly say, he said, I've never let you drop before. What are you worried about? I really am. I'm truly being honest with you. I have seen Genesis be blessed because we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Anyway, he's laughing, and I'm saying, no, you've never let me drop, but you dangle me out there so far, So there it is, hope. That's my hope, that the community will continue to let us be these lightning rods, that I'll take your money, I'll take your hope, and I get to give it. What a great job is that? I get to give it to someone who thought there was none.
Yeah. You see this as cyclical, that it just continues, that's what they learned?
Yeah. Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes,
yes. Sometimes, and we do a lot to break that generational cycle of violence. Kids who are raised in a violent home get on-the-job training to be tomorrow's victims and tomorrow's abusers. Yeah. And so if someone who is listening is living in a violent home, but they want to stay for the kids, that's really the saddest excuse of all of them, right? And we can help Mom at Genesis with a phone call, 214-946-HELP. We can, with one phone call, we can talk to her about the impact it's having on her children. So sometimes it is they grew up watching it. It's like you spoke another language. You grew up speaking Spanish, you don't know there's French out there until you see or hear somebody speaking French. That is the language that you grew up with. But on the other hand, there are some men who there is so little accountability. Maybe they are very successful in business, or they own a huge sports team, or they have been enabled to behave like they've behaved. Now, it seems to be in the abuser's mind that until there is some sort of impetus for him to change his behavior, why should he? Until a judge or a job or somebody in more power than he has says you will not do that, then we don't see the change. I don't really hear of many men who wake up and said, man, I'm hurting my wife and I'm ruining my life. Even when I have visited batters intervention programs. And, the guys will kind of sit around and laugh and say, oh, yeah, she just walked into my fist. And I'm like, you were here because a judge found you guilty of beating your wife, and still you can just pawn it on. Yeah. Diminish that, yeah. We were talking a minute ago about a particular client who, she began trying to navigate it on her own. And she was losing custody of her kids. And she'd go back and, try again when she, thought she could do it. And then Genesis actually came in contact with her. And I don't know if that was at the courthouse or where, but we fought for her for 5 years. This guy was abusive to her. There was thought that he had sexually abused 2 out of 3 of the kiddos. And for 5 years, he would go back to court. I'm going to modify these orders, or I'm going to take you back and, you'll be sorry, or you're not going to have the money to do this. And he had the money. And it just went on and on and on. And after 5 years, our legal team at Genesis was able to get her full custody. That's rarely heard of, full custody. And it was a miracle. It really was a miracle. I mean, half the department was crying. But those services for get a divorce and help with your kiddos, again, without it is the biggest roadblock. I would not have left without my children.
I think I know we've got just a little bit of time, but I still know there's hope in this.
Absolutely.
I still know there is hope in this, and I wonder if you could give a woman that's listening to this podcast right now,
right,
that hope,
right,
to say, you know what, it doesn't matter how much money is in the bank or not in the bank, or what you've been told, or maybe bad theology that's been said
very
to you,
much
because
so.
There's some of that.
I know
a
there
lot
is.
Of that.
Yeah.
That has been said to you. What would you say to her right now, a woman listening that needs to hear that there is this hope?
Right. I would first say, number one, it's not your fault. It is never your fault. No matter what he tells you it is not your fault. I would say, number two, if he did it once, he'll do it again. No matter the promises or the I love yous or the gifts, it doesn't matter. If it happened once, it'll happen again. And the third thing is, you're not alone. There is help at Genesis Women's Shelter and Support, and that's a phone call away.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jan.
Oh, gosh.
This has been
Of course.
outstanding, and I hope
Anytime.
very helpful, because we hope that the information that we've been able to convey will be picked up and passed on, and maybe even utilized
I hope so.
by someone who's tuned in.
I hope so.
today.
And if somebody is even not still too nervous to even call us, we have a text line, and we get twice as many texts as we do calls, with her starting off saying, he's in the shower, I only have a few minutes. And so a lot of those, but then also go to our website, www.genesisshelter.org. And there's wonderful information there, how to help a friend, how to support Genesis, how to come to one of our events. There's just lots of really good information on our website.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
Please do.
And thank you for checking this out, and we hope to see you in our next episode.